session, please stand for pledge allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Heavenly Father, we come before you just saying thank you, Lord. Thank you for wisdom and understanding, Lord. Cover me in your blood. Cover me, Lord, so that I can understand the wrongs and the rights, Lord. We ask that you bless everyone that's assembled in your name. We ask for all these blessings in your Son, Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Clerk Golick, roll call.
Markovich. Spitali.
Here.
Vines.
Here.
Kalwinski.
Here.
Ulaki.
Here.
Higgs. Emerson.
Here.
Enosa.
Here.
Opinker.
Here. Moving on to reading of minutes.
President,
Councilman Spitali.
make a motion to accept the minutes for November 17, 2014.
It's a motion by Councilman Spitali, second by Councilman Kowinski to accept the minutes. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of accepting the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes pass. Moving on to approval of claims.
Mr. Chairman,
Councilman Markovich.
move for approval of claims November 12th through December 10th, 2014 for council meeting December 15, 2014. Beginning with claims dated 11/17/14 and ending with claims dated 12/10/14. Claim number 6040 through claim number 6608 for a total of $44,594,970.34. I so move.
Second.
It's a motion by Councilman Markovich, second by Councilman Higgs, accepting the claims. Is there any discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Councilman Markovich.
I have some additions for the claims. Claim number 6609, Design Studio, 303, $126.67. Posters for Mayor's Night Out. Claim number 6610, 330, CR Publications, Photography and Video Services. 6611, U.S. Bank Equipment Finance, $205, copier lease. Claim number 6612, Hammond National Company, $34,375. Insurance for 5233, 5244 Holman Avenue, 5209 Holman Avenue, and 5243 Holman Avenue. I so move.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Markovich, second by Councilman Higgs on the amended version of the claims. Is there any discussion? Any discussion on the amended version? Clerk Golick, roll call.
Markovich.
Yes.
Spitali.
Yes.
Vines.
Yes.
Kalwinski.
Yes.
Ulaki.
Yes.
Higgs.
Yes.
Emerson.
Yes.
Enosa.
Yes.
Opinker.
Yes, claims as amended passes 9-0. Now the claims as written. Clerk Golick, roll call vote.
Markovich.
Yes.
Spitali.
Yes.
Vines.
Yes.
Kalwinski.
Yes.
Ulaki.
Yes.
Higgs.
Yes.
Emerson.
Yes.
Enosa.
Yes.
Opinker.
Yes, claims pass 9-0. Moving on to public hearing, there is none. Number 6, communications. Have any communications?
Mr. President,
Councilman Higgs.
I received a correspondence from one of my constituents. It says, Harrison Park, no protective barrier to keep mulch is a thin and ruler. Note, group digs beneath zip line. Note, rip hanging from zip line, a serious choking hazard. Zip line ground to handle is greater than 6 feet. As per our conversation in the neighborhood Inc. and event, I am concerned that Harrison Park is not up to public playground safety code. I am due to appear in court on December 16th at 8:45 p.m. U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission, Public Playground Safety. Then it shows the guidelines, I guess, breakdown equipment, and then I have pictures. So at the end of the meeting, I'll forward it to Pat, who's the superintendent of parks, so he can look into this.
Any other communications? Communications is now closed. Moving on to committee reports.
Mr. President,
Councilwoman Vines.
council as a whole will be bringing out 1441 and 1442.
Any other committee reports? Committee reports is now closed. Ordinances, third and final reading.
Ordinance number 14-41, sponsored by Councilwoman Vines. An ordinance authorizing the city controller to transfer funds from one line item to another within the Hammond City Court 2014 budget.
Mr. President,
Councilwoman Vines.
I move for final passage of 1441.
Second.
It's a motion by Councilwoman Vines, second by Councilman Higgs, final passage of 1441. Is there any discussion?
Mr. President,
Councilwoman Vines.
back in March, a local infraction deferral program was established and a non-reverting fund associated with that program was also established. As the result of that program this year, there are $10,000 in that non-reverting fund that is going to be transferred to part-time salaries.
Any other discussion? Clerk Gullick, roll call vote on 1441.
Markovich. Yes. Spitali.
Yes.
Vines.
Yes.
Elwinski.
Yes.
Ulaki.
Yes.
Higgs.
Yes.
Emerson.
Yes.
Enosa.
Yes.
Opinker.
Yes, 1441 passes 9-0.
Ordinance 14-42, sponsored by Councilman Emerson. An ordinance amending Title VII of the Hammond Municipal Code, Traffic Schedule 3, and setting a school speed zone limit at 165th and Holman Avenue for 25 miles per hour.
Mr. President,
Councilman Emerson.
I move for final passage of ordinance 1442.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Emerson, second by Councilman Spitali for final passage of 1442. Is there any discussion?
Mr. President,
Councilman Higgs.
how far on Holman Avenue is the speed limit signs going to be placed? Because I do recall the judge contacted me about speed limit signs, but I'm just trying to get it analyzed. How long will these signs be placed on Holman Avenue from what location to what location?
The ordinance what I'm familiar with about 165th and Holman, Mr. President, excuse me. The posted speed they're requesting is 25 miles an hour. From what I've observed, although it's not in the ordinance, it goes to Harrison Park on the north and approximately Humford on the south,
Mr. President.
on Holman.
Councilman Higgs.
Excuse me, are you done, Councilman Emerson? Are you done?
Well, I was going to say 165th. The whole idea is Kenwood School being on the corner. So on 165th, I know that it's posted approximately a little past Lyman, and then, to state line as you enter the city. You should see that.
Mr. President,
Councilman Higgs.
clarity, I think it should be to the best discretion of the Councilman Emerson to identify where the signs will be placed. Therefore, you will have a general idea of where they're being located, from what location to what. Because you can say 25-mile speed limit from here all the way to Wolf Lake. Holman Avenue goes all the way down. So where do you want them to stop at? Or do you want it on all of Holman Avenue from 165th? Just need some clarity, and I think that would help the judge out as well. So, I mean, you can amend the ordinance and just tell me how far you want it to go. All you have to do is amend it, make a motion to amend the ordinance. But you need to give me a general idea of how far you want the 25-mile-per-hour speed limit signs to be placed.
Mr. President,
Councilwoman Vines?
Judge Harkin is here. If I could, I'd like to ask him to come to the microphone because he and I have had a conversation about this very subject as well. And it seems as if going north on Homan Avenue, well, even from the river going north, the speed limit changes every so often. And if Councilman Emerson wants this a consistent speed limit, could you make a recommendation perhaps that we may be able to amend in?
Thank you, Councilwoman. The speed limit on Homan Avenue from my home on South Homan to the hospital changes 7 times. Now, there is not a human being driving on the planet that could change their speed 7 different times in a 2-mile area. The other suggestion I would like this council to consider is to do a more general study of the speed limits throughout the city. For example, Highland Street, there are 4 speed limit signs west to east to the Ileana warehouse. There's one at Harrison. There's one at Calumet. There are 2 that couple Noble. Coming back west, there's one at Jennings, one at Noble, and one at Columbia. There are no speed limit signs at MLK Park, at City Hall, at Hammond High School, at any of the Eggers, Montessori, anything that would state that there was a speed limit of 25, which it should. Now, that's just one example. I think that this council should consider a conference to investigate the silliness of some of our speed limits throughout our city. I mean, it doesn't make any sense to me that it's 25 miles an hour on Homan Avenue north of the hospital. It's still a 4-lane highway. It's not residential. It's industrial and commercial. And we need to take into consideration that for our speed limits.
Mr. President,
Councilman Higgs?
my question again, as I posed earlier, because I wasn't the person who introduced the legislation, I think, although I feel it's needed, but it should be standardized across the board, and that's why that was the purpose of me reiterating the fact that the signs are all different numbers, because I've watched.
And Councilman, I absolutely agree with you. The fact that speed limit on Calumet Avenue by Edison School is 35 miles an hour, when it's 20 or 25 or whatever, depending on the flashing lights or who's present, doesn't make any sense. We need to have a generally acceptable program for the entire city that makes sense.
So, Mr. President,
Councilman Higgs.
So in the meantime, Judge, we have this piece of legislation before us now that we're in the process of voting on. Again, do you have a recommendation or suggestion as to what should be implemented on Holman Avenue from the radius of 165th to perhaps Wolf Lake?
Okay, the legislation, as I read it, is in the vicinity of 165th and Holman. Now, the 20-mile-per-hour limit starts at around Vine Street, and it remains until Conkey. Same way south. So are we changing the speed limit to 25 from Vine Street to Conkey?
Mr. President,
Councilwoman Perez.
I'm wondering if it might not make more sense to make the speed limit down Holman Avenue, say 30 miles per hour, and have school zone signs by Kenwood School.
I absolutely agree. And I think those same signs should be present at Edison, at Jefferson, at Harding, at Maywood, at every grade school, high school, middle school in this city. And I think it should be a general conference put together to propose that ordinance. But in the meantime, today, this day, I support 25 miles an hour at 165th and Holman.
Mr. President,
Councilman Emerson.
just in the interest of providing some clarity, which Councilman asked for, I did give the parameters, and it was roughly Conkey on the north. I said Humfer on the south, 25 miles an hour. There are school zone signs currently with big yellow flashing lights that when children are present, it's 20 miles an hour. The problem is, at that intersection, which is very busy, as I stated in caucus, from gas stations, people rushing to get to their designated transportation, that's a very dangerous intersection because of the elementary school. That's what I'm trying to deal with right here. You know, school's in session till right before Christmas, and then it's out, but it's back in. And that's the purpose of this ordinance, not rocket science. I agree with everything that's been said, by the way. There are all kinds of different speed limits on Holman. I'm dealing with the Kenwood School area. That's the purpose of this. I mean, you know, that's all.
Mr. President,
Councilman Higgs.
the Kenwood School radius is just a block, so you just saying that in that vicinity of that block?
I believe that's what he said.
Is that what you're saying, Councilman?
Again, approximately Humfer on the south, and I want to say just the end of Harrison Park, but that's a block away from Conkey. But if that's the case, so be it. Because right after that is the Montessori school. So actually, it should be further north. But I'm talking about that intersection because of those gas stations, our good friends from Illinois buying our gasoline, and people driving down Holman Avenue, by the way, every morning, not at that posted speed, I can tell you that, about 40 miles over it at times. So that's all, trying to protect some elementary school kids here.
Any other discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Councilman Markovich.
I would ask Councilman Emerson, when you drafted this ordinance, did you consult the engineering department for a traffic study on this?
This has been in front of the Board of Works, and they're aware of it, and the police department agrees with me. And if you read, if you look, I don't know if you got it, but I sure got it. Gary Gleason had sent a letter to the Board of Works, and they agree that it's a school district. I mean, we can, you know, work on it till it's a PhD, but we're just trying to get people to slow down.
Mr. President,
Councilman Higgs.
Councilman Emerson, that sign by Kenwood currently states what speed limit? Is there a speed limit sign currently by the school, Kenwood?
Well, right now, we want it to be 25 miles an hour,
Is there
And the
currently?
sign that, the school zone sign says 20 when the yellow light is flashing.
Okay. That answers my question.
Okay, Clerk Golick, roll call vote.
Could I interject one more point? There are two different signs. There's a sign that says 20 miles per hour if children are present. There's another sign that says 20 miles per hour if the sign is flashing.
Yeah, that's what it said.
So you have three different signs. Which one do we follow?
Mr. President,
Councilman Higgs?
I would say that Councilman Emerson, if you want to amend the motion, make it 25 miles an hour from 165th all the way to Waltham, and that makes it clear. That goes all the way to Montessori School. And that clarifies it. And that way, the rest of the signs will be irrelevant, because the problem is, the judge is saying is that people are saying, I wasn't speeding. I seen the sign.
Mr. President,
Councilwoman Vines.
I think in due respect to Councilman Emerson's wishes with this ordinance and in his intention to keep our children safe, it's my opinion that we should pass the ordinance, and then after the beginning of the year, take a look at some of the disparity between the speed limits down Holman Avenue, also by, as you said, on Calumet Avenue, Edison School, and there's several other schools in the city. And maybe we could meet with Gary Gleason and see what we could work out.
Mr. President,
Councilman Higgs.
I mean, I understand somewhat what's being said, but the reality of it is we're here and the piece of legislation is before us and the judge is here. And a recommendation is being made by the councilman who happens to represent the 3rd District of the city of Hammond. So that was my purpose of saying Montessori School is also placed in my district, as well as Kenwood. And for clarity, I mean, both schools are very important, and I represent the district, so I feel it's necessary for the signs to be placed not just at 165th, but to go all the way past Montessori School, which would be Waltham. That's my purpose of making that statement.
Mr. President,
Councilwoman Vines.
and the purpose of me making my statement was that there are a lot of schools in the city of Hammond, not just in the 4th District and not just in the 3rd District, and I think we need to address all of the schools. Just a couple of months ago, Crime Watch took up a collection for crossing guard vests, to upgrade the crossing guard vests. This could very well be a project that Crime Watch may want to get involved in, to get signs by each of the schools, you know, those mini sandwich board signs to put in the center of the street so the drivers can see that they are most definitely in a school zone. So that's something that I will look into.
Clerk Golick, roll call vote.
Markovich.
Yes.
Spitali.
Yes.
Vines.
Yes,
Kalwinski.
Yes.
Ulaki.
Yes.
Higgs.
Yes.
Emerson.
Yes?
Enosa.
Yes.
Opinker.
Yes, 1442 passes 9-0.
President Opinker, that concludes the ordinances for final passage.
Moving on to number 9, introduction of ordinances.
Item A, ordinance 14-43, sponsored by Councilwoman Vines. An ordinance fixing the salaries for elected city officials for the city of Hammond, Indiana, commencing January 1, 2015. Be it ordained by the Common Council of the city of Hammond, Indiana.
Mr. President,
Councilwoman Vines.
I move for first and second reading of 1443.
Second.
So motion by Councilwoman Vines, second by Councilman Spitali, first and second on 1443. Is there any discussion?
Mr. President,
Councilwoman Vines.
this ordinance fixes the salaries for all elected officials. This ordinance does need to be passed before the end of the year.
Any other discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? First and second passes.
Mr. President,
Councilman Emerson.
I move for final, third, I move to suspend the rules.
Second.
There's a motion by Councilman Emerson, second by Councilman Higgs to suspend the rules. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Rules suspended.
Mr. President,
Councilman Emerson.
now I move for third and final reading of 1443 and vote.
Second.
There's a motion by Councilman Emerson, second by Councilwoman Vines, third and final reading on 1443. Is there any discussion?
Mr. President,
Councilman Higgs.
I'd like that ordinance read in its entirety. I so move.
Mr. President, I was wondering what
Sure.
the council rules were on having something read in its entirety, because it seems like it's a delaying tactic. I think it's weird. I mean, what if we have a 100-page bond before the council, and Councilman Higgs moves to read a 100-page bond? Does Clerk Golick have to read off 100 pages just because Councilman Higgs wants it read? I mean, it's a procedural thing, really. I mean, does one councilman get to say read off this ordinance? And it could be an ordinance with 1,000 pages. Do you have to read it off every time?
Mr. President,
Councilman Higgs.
the reality of it is, Mayor, is that the general public is here and they may not be familiar with what's being passed this evening.
Mr.
It's
President?
not- I didn't cut you off, so please don't cut me off. I don't know if these are political tactics or what's going on here, but the reality of it is, I'm just simply trying to represent the people that I serve.
Mr. President?
I'm not done, Mr. President. All I'm trying to do is serve my constituents to the best of my ability. All these tactics and this backbiting and this backstabbing is unnecessary. I don't do it to you. I would appreciate it if you would just stop. Thank you.
Mr. President?
Mr. Mayor.
I don't think it's really effective if that's what Councilman Higgs' purpose is, because what usually happens is, it's a long ordinance, poor Clerk Golick's over there for 10, 15 minutes reading off an ordinance that nobody's listening to. Everybody's sitting there looking at their smartphone. Why don't you explain it, Councilman Higgs? If you really want to inform the constituents, let's talk about it. The elected official salary ordinance. Every elected official in this salary ordinance is prepared to receive a 2% pay raise. Done. Do we really have to read off every single word on that ordinance? That's what it is. It's summarized in a nutshell, Councilman Higgs. Isn't that much easier than reading word for word? I feel sorry for Clerk Golick every time this motion's made. That's why I'm up here saying I think the council should take a position on it.
Mr.
Should be a
President.
majority.
Mr. President,
I have to agree with you on that one, Mayor. Councilman Higgs.
the reality of it is, and I hope the camera's on so they don't take this out. The reality of it is that I don't think the clerk has a problem with it. He's never approached me about it. And regardless to whether it's offensive or you feel as though it's offensive to you because it's not, you don't want to be heard. So you feel as though everybody should agree to it. That's not fair. The general public may want to know what we're discussing. It's not an everyday occurrence every time I come before the council, but there are certain things that I feel that is necessary to be presented and be brought forth to the general public. What's the problem with it?
Mr. President?
Is it something we're hiding? Is it something we're hiding?
Mr. President?
Mr. Mayor.
Okay, in this single case, it could be a 2-page ordinance that you're reading off. What if Councilman Higgs wants to delay a council meeting for 4 or 5 hours and say, Clerk Golick, we have a 150-page bond document. I want you to read it in its entirety. So one councilman could have that entire bond document read. Is that really? Because literally, it's a good stalling tactic. If you do want to delay something, I can give you a real thick ordinance one day. Councilman Kowinski could say, I want this ordinance read in full. Clerk Golick, you better get your lozenges, because you're going to be sitting there for about 6 hours reading off an ordinance. Is that really what we're doing? I mean, this is a simple ordinance. It's a 2-page ordinance. Everybody in the ordinance gets a 2% pay raise. Every elected official, from me down to the council, to Clerk Golick, to Judge Harkin. That's what the ordinance says. Do we really have to read every single word? And if this is the standard, Councilman Spitali, next time I float a thick ordinance, maybe you want the whole thing read. Where does it stop? That's all I'm saying. This isn't good for business, really, because sometimes you have important people out here that are waiting to do business with the city of Hammond, and we're sitting there for 15 or 20 minutes reading off an ordinance that nobody's listening to. This isn't about hiding. It's a silly procedure, and I'm questioning the council on their silly procedure, and I think you should take a position on it.
And another thing, all this is public record.
It is a public record. This is a simple ordinance. Everybody,
Mr.
schedule
President.
myself down. 2% pay raise, just like the city employees. That's
Mr.
what this ordinance says. There's nothing to hide. It's just silliness from Councilman Higgs. That's all I'm saying.
Mr. President,
Councilman Higgs.
Mayor, I find it very offensive that you would call it silliness, because the reality of it is I was elected to serve my constituents, and you were elected to serve them as well. So anytime that my constituents want to know something and they may not have the piece of legislation before them, it is my obligation and my responsibility to inform them, and it should be yours as well. I don't know what's, the devil's over you or something. Something's is really disturbing you, but it's really sad the way you conduct yourself and the way you attack me personally, because all it is a political attack. That's all it is. I am so sad that I personally supported you in the beginning, because you have really shown me to be just disrespectful and just, it's ridiculous the way you conduct yourself. It's ridiculous. Sad. It's really sad.
Mr. President,
Mayor.
I think I summarized it perfectly. It's a 2% pay raise for everybody. Every elected official that's before me right now, including myself, including the clerk, including the judge. This needs to be passed before December 31st. It may be a small ordinance this time, but what happens if it's a 100-pager? What happens if it's a 200-pager? You do pass those. In fact, we have an intent to consider a zoning, and those are real thick. What if Councilman Higgs wants that read off and it takes 3 or 4 hours? You have to have some type of policy, Council President Opinker, that is it one person, one vote, allows a thick ordinance to be read word for word, and I guarantee you most people aren't listening to it. No offense to Clerk Golick. I love listening to Clerk Golick. Okay? It's just a very boring, ineffective way to communicate with the public. All you have to do is say, this is an ordinance, everybody gets 2%. Let's move forward to the next important item of business instead of delaying. Thank you, Mr. President.
Any other discussion? Clerk Golick, roll call vote.
Markovich.
Mr. Chairman,
Point of order.
Point of order.
Point of order.
Councilman Markovich.
Is he going to read the ordinance or not?
Clerk Golick, read the ordinance.
That's what we just had the discussion.
Ordinance 14-43, sponsored by Councilman Venez. An ordinance fixing salaries for elected city officials for the city of Hammond, Indiana, commencing January 1, 2015, be it ordained by the Common Council of the city of Hammond, Indiana, Section 1. For the calendar year 2015, the salary schedule for elected officials of the city of Hammond, Indiana, shall be fixed as follows. Mayor, $84,406, Civil City. $11,253, Water Department. $11,253, Sanitary District. Judge, $78,422, Civil City. $3,500, Indiana Public Law 98, passed in 2004, Indiana Senate Enrolled Act 263. Clerk, $81,923, Civil City. Councilpersons, $25,647, Civil City. Section 2, for 2015, the payday shall be every other Friday commencing on January 2nd of 2015. Section 3, the city shall pay the 3% contribution in PERF for those officials who do not already participate in another retirement or pension plan sponsored, plan supported in whole or in part by the state of political subdivision of the state as of January 1, 1992. Section 4, this ordinance shall be in full force and effect from and after January 1, 2015, upon signing by the President of the Common Council, approval by the mayor, and publication as provided by law.
Thank you, Clerk Golick.
Clerk Golick, roll call vote.
Markovich.
Yes.
Spitali.
Yes.
Venez.
Yes.
Kalwinski.
Yes.
Ulaki.
Yes.
Higgs.
Yes.
Emerson,
Yes.
Enosa,
Yes.
Opinker.
Yes, 1443 passes 9-0.
Item B,
Councilman Hinojosa.
Back to a regular order of business.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Hinojosa would like to make a motion to go back to regular order of business.
Second.
Second by Councilman Higgs. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Item B, ordinance 14-44, sponsored by Councilman Opinker, and ordinance authorizing the city controller to transfer funds from one line item to another within various city 2014 budgets.
Mr. President,
Councilman Higgs.
I make a motion that we move ordinance 1444 on first and second reading by title and refer to council as a whole. I so move.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Higgs, second by Councilman Hinojosa. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? First and second passes.
Mr. President.
Councilman Hinojosa.
Yeah, I'd like to suspend the rules so we can pass 1444.
Second.
It's a motion by Councilman Hinojosa, second by Councilman Higgs to suspend the rules. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Rules suspended.
Mr. President,
Councilman Hinojosa.
motion to pass 1444 on third and final reading.
Second.
It's a motion by Councilman Hinojosa, second by Councilman Higgs. Third and final passage. Is there any discussion?
Mr. President.
Councilman Higgs.
Clerk, were you finished saying something?
The clerk was just going to point out to the council that on the first and second, it refers to council as a whole. Is it coming out of committee now?
Yes.
This is third and final reading, clerk. Mr. President,
Councilman Higgs.
just for a point of clarity, as a councilman, I think any particular ordinance, I can explain it. It's not a problem. This particular ordinance, 1444, reflects transfer of funds throughout the different departments within the city. Preferably, the controller is reflecting on the consolidated department that needed some funds transferred. And I can identify the numbers, the MVH, utilities, the numbers, and as a councilman, if I so choose to, by law, I could simply go over it, but I won't this evening. 1444.
Any other discussion? Clerk Golick, roll call vote.
Markovich.
Yes.
Spitali.
Yes.
Vines.
Yes.
Kalwinski.
Yes.
Ulaki.
Yes.
Higgs.
Yes.
Emerson.
Yes.
Enosa.
Yes.
Opinker.
Yes, 1444 passes 9-0.
Mr. President,
Councilman Hinojosa.
can we, motion to make, go back to regular order of business?
Second.
Motion by Councilman Hinojosa, second by Councilman Higgs to go back to regular order of business. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Back to regular order of business.
Item C, ordinance 14-45, sponsored by Councilwoman Vines, and ordinance authorizing the city controller to transfer funds from one line item to another within the Hammond Common Council 2014 budget.
Mr. President,
Councilwoman Vines.
I move for first and second reading of 1445.
It's a motion by Councilwoman Vines, second by Councilman Kolinsky. Is there any discussion?
Mr. President,
Councilwoman Vines.
this is again moving funds from one line item to another within the Hammond Common Council 2014 budget.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? First and second passes in 1445.
Mr. President,
Councilwoman Vines.
I move to suspend the rules.
Second.
Motion by Councilwoman Vines, second by Councilman Higgs to suspend the rules. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Rules suspended.
Mr. President,
Councilwoman Vines.
I move for final passage of 1445.
It's a motion by Councilwoman Vines, second by Councilman Kowinski for final passage of 1445. Is there any discussion? Clerk Golick, roll call vote on 1445.
Markovich.
Yes.
Spitali.
Yes.
Vines.
Yes.
Kalwinski.
Yes.
Ulaki.
Yes.
Higgs.
Yes.
Emerson.
Yes.
Enosa.
Yes.
Opinker.
Yes, 1445 passes 9-0.
Mr. President,
Councilwoman Vines?
I move to return to the regular order of business.
Second.
The motion by Councilwoman Vines, second by Councilman Higgs to go back to regular order of business. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Back to regular order of business.
Item D, ordinance 14-46, sponsored by Councilwoman Vines. An ordinance authorizing the issuance and sale of the City of Hammond, Indiana, Economic Development Revenue Refunding Bonds, Series 215, the Hammond Urban Academy Incorporated project, for the purpose of refunding the city's outstanding economic development revenue bonds, Series 2010A, the Hammond Urban Academy Incorporated project, and approving and authorizing other actions in respect thereto.
Mr. President,
Councilwoman Vines?
I move for first and second reading of 1446 and place in council as a whole.
Motion by Councilwoman Vines, second by Councilman Hinojosa for first and second reading on 1446 and put it in council as a whole. Is there any discussion?
Mr. President,
Councilwoman Vines?
this ordinance is to refinance bonds for the Hammond Academy, Hammond Urban Academy. The savings realized over the life of the contract will be approximately $1,679,835.58. It will also, we will realize the savings of an average of $135,000 a year by refinancing.
Any other discussion?
Mr. President,
Councilman Higgs?
that's excellent. I'm just so pleased that Councilwoman Vines identified the savings that we're going to save with this bond issuance. Oh, I'm just overwhelmed. And thank you so much for explaining that to me.
You're so very welcome, Councilman.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? First and second passes.
Item E, ordinance 14-47, sponsored by Councilman Higgs. An ordinance to approve for diversity in the Hammond Police Department.
Mr. President,
Councilman Higgs?
I move ordinance 1447 in first and second reading by title and refer to council as a whole. I so move.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Higgs, second by Councilman Hinojosa. Is there any discussion? Any discussion on 1447?
Mr. President?
Mr.
This is regarding the hiring procedure of the police department, I believe. Is this that ordinance?
Yes.
I don't know, maybe Councilman Higgs could brief us a little bit on what he's proposing, because I don't think the police chief has been conferred on this, and I know I haven't. I don't believe the city attorney. Chris? You know? I could speak for Attorney Cantor in this case. I know she hasn't been approached on this, so I'm not really sure who's advising Councilman Higgs. Maybe he wants to explain this a little bit.
Mr. President,
Councilman Higgs?
are you done speaking, Mayor? I don't want to be interrupted when I start speaking. Are you done? Are you done? Oh, okay. Well, first and foremost, Attorney Berger represents the council, so he's our attorney. Any legislation that I push forward, I go through our city attorney. Secondly, this particular ordinance is in first and second reading, so it's going to go to council as a whole. And so you're more than welcome to schedule a meeting with me or my colleagues in due respect to this particular ordinance. But for clarity, it was one of the things that you had discussed at a previous meeting as it relates to being diversified in terms of hiring more minorities in the police force. So I'm just following your lead.
Maybe we could read it off.
Certainly, if that's what you would like. Mr. President,
Councilman Higgs?
we can have Clerk Golick read the ordinance.
Clerk Golick?
and ordinance approved for diversity in the Hammond Police Department. Whereas the Common Council finds that a majority of the population of this city are either African American or Hispanics, but that the police department is composed overwhelmingly of white males. And whereas the Common Council finds that this discrepancy results in many arrests or other confrontation by white police officers with Hispanic or African American residents, and that if the police department even somewhat reflected the population of the city as a whole, it would help create more trust and confidence by the population in the department. Such trust and confidence is essential to the effective operation of the department and the safety of the city. The clerk is reading how it's spelled. Whereas the council further finds that the failure of the city to have a reasonable number of black and Hispanic police officers is caused by a failure of the city to adequately qualified black and Hispanic officers, and the use of tests which are used to disqualify an unreasonable number of minority applicants. Therefore, be it ordained by the Common Council of the City of Hammond. Section 1. The city shall agreeably recruit qualified African American and Hispanic persons to join the Hammond Police Department. Section 2. The city shall use no test which disproportionately results in excluding African American applicants from appointments to the department. The goal of the city is that the membership of the police department should somewhat reflect that of the community it serves. If necessary, the safety board should follow the practice of the city of East Chicago and give preferential points to residents, African Americans, and Hispanic applicants.
Oh, I called them up, they said.
Be it further ordained by the Common Council of the City of Hammond that this ordinance shall be in full force and effect from and after its passage by the Common Council, signing by the President thereof, and approval by the Mayor.
Mr. President,
Councilman Higgs.
and I really, really would hope that at some point, Mayor, that you would wholeheartedly come up with some suggestions as to how to approach the situation. I am openly and willing to do whatever is necessary to achieve what's necessary to make the city move forward. So you have clarity as to where I stand.
Mr. President,
Councilwoman Vines.
I do have a question. Exactly what is the practice of the city of East Chicago with regard to applicants to their police department?
Mr. President,
Councilman Higgs.
Councilwoman Vines, I don't want to quote totally on it, but there's a percentage of, if you live in the city and you have African American descent, there's a point system or something. But Attorney Berger was supposed to get copies of that documentation, but at the next meeting, I will have copies for you.
Mr. President,
I would appreciate that.
Mr. Mayor.
how many points, Councilman Higgs? I mean,
I'm
percentage-wise?
not sure, but Attorney Berger was working on that for me. I'm not sure. I don't want to misquote.
Mr. President, if this is passed, do we have to lay off white Hammond police officers? Is that where we're heading with this? We could change the department, but we have 210 police officers. That's all that's been budgeted, okay?
I
And
guess
most-
we
most
need
of my
some
police
legal
officers-
advice on this ordinance.
Most of my police officers, when they join the police department, they stay with the police department until they retire, okay? And a lot of the police officers that are working for me right now were hired in the 1990s. I don't know, maybe we increase the number of police officers, and commit to, or if we're gonna stay with 210, is the council asking me to forcibly downsize Caucasian police officers?
Mr. President,
Councilman Higgs.
Mr. Mayor, this ordinance is not intended to lay off anyone. It is simply to state that we want to diversify in the fact of hiring more minorities on the Hammond Police Department. In no form or fashion is this identifying and saying you should lay off. In fact, I feel as though we need more officers. In fact, I can give you an example of something that I had to occurred and happened to me this weekend.
You just passed the budget.
On Saturday. Let me finish, Mayor. You always seem to have a tendency to cut people off. It is so rude. I haven't did it to you. So I am asking you respectfully to please stop it. Thank you so much. One incident that happened to me was on Saturday, and as I was strolling through my district, looking at some areas of concern, on May Street, I had to call the fire department. Luckily, no one died. There was a flame going across the 1000 block of May Street where a gas tank was placed under a young lady's car. Could have very easily blew up the vehicle and the residents on May Street. Secondly, at the liquor store, Sunrise Liquor, there were a couple of individuals that I've known all my life. And they're a little younger than me. And the Hammond police were there. And the way they conducted themselves was totally disrespectful.
Damon, please.
No, the individuals.
Okay.
Okay? I'm not going to hold anyone up when they're wrong. If you're wrong, you're wrong. I don't care who you are. It could be from my mother, my father, you, me, anyone. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. If you're right, you're right. Okay? The reality of it is what happened was there were 4 officers there. And the way they conducted themselves, it was totally uncalled for. I'm not going to hold you up when you're wrong. And I told them. I stood personally there while the officer was there, and I told them, you need to respect them because they have a job to do. So, in saying this, the reality of it is I'm trying to come to a feasible understanding as to how to come to a happy medium with addressing the concerns of not just my district, but the entire city.
Thank you, Councilman. Mr. President, I just want to point out, we just passed a budget, I think, 2 meetings ago. The budget was prepared by the council, signed by the mayor, voted on 9-0, if I remember correctly. That budget has 211 police officers, including the police chief. Voted 9-0 by the city council, signed by the mayor. I attended every meeting. I don't remember one person bringing up increased police presence, not because we don't desire increased police presence, because we have a structural deficit in our budget. I didn't recall Councilman Higgs bringing that up. I wish he would have. I wish we would have tried to find ways to do it, but it's hard when you have a structural deficit. So, I appreciate the attempt to help diversify the police department, and we're working on that right now, so.
Mr. President,
Mr. Higgs, Councilman Higgs.
I'm going to say this and I'm done with it. The reality of it is that we're in a deficit. You have to look at the spending. You're the administrator of this city. In spending and being on the council for 11 years, I've always tried to stay under the restraints of what was allocated for my district. If you look at the history of the spending from the casino dollars that were allocated for the 3rd district, every year money was rolled over. So in order to save money, it's just like when you have a home. You can't live in a home and think that, you know, you're going to go out and spend $300,000, $400,000 and your house is $1 million. You know, you have to pay for that home. So you have to budget yourself. And in saying that, you have to find out what's needed and what's necessary in terms of addressing the needs of the people. That's all I have to say.
Mr. President,
Councilman Hinojosa.
I'm sure we'll come up with more in the, this is just the first and second reading, but 8 months ago, we passed a resolution that hiring should somewhat, it's just a resolution, that hiring should somewhat reflect the diversity of the city. Also, this is probably coming about because of everything that's going on throughout the United States, and right here, just in the city of Hammond, African Americans are 25% of the population, but the police department is only 5% or less. Hispanics are 37% approximately, and only 12% are police officers. Now, as far as this ordinance downsizing and laying off police officers, these police officers have a union, and you cannot
lay any of these police officers, they have seniority, you cannot take out any of the police officers to put somebody else in there. It would have to be done with new hirees. And also, this administration had 11 years. The previous administration, Dilo, I don't know what he had, about 8 years. And the previous mayor before him, McDermott Sr., had another 6 or 7 years. They failed to diversify the police department and other departments as well.
Mr. President,
Councilwoman Vines.
if we are going to talk about being inclusive, there's no mention made of women. There's no mention made of the LBGT community. If we're going to be inclusive, we have to include everyone.
Any other discussion?
Mr. President,
Councilman Emerson?
I would like to see, it was mentioned earlier, but if you're going to continue to amend this with the councilman who's sponsoring it, the East Chicago data, you're saying they give preferential points to residents, African Americans, and Hispanic applicants. I'd like to see that as part of this ordinance, and also a little clarity on what a reasonable number is. You use the word reasonable number a few times, and then and what are used to disqualify an unreasonable number of minority applicants. There's no there. So I'd like to see that, if you care to amend that. Thank you.
Mr. President,
Mayor.
because it applies, I want to mention this, and I hope these officers aren't here listening to me right now, because I'm going to embarrass them by mentioning the 3 new hires City of Hammond's bringing in as we speak today. I just met the individuals. All 3 are from, 2 of them are from Gary PD. They're emergency hires. We brought them in. One of them is from IUN Police Department. They start January 2nd. One, for demographic purposes, I'm not going to mention it, but it's diverse. I'm proud to have these 3 individuals come in. I don't want these officers to think the only reason they got hired is because they're from a diverse background, because they're great police officers and they deserve to work for our police department. And they're excited about working in the Hammond Police Department because they're going to make more money, they're going to have better equipment, they're going to have better opportunities for overtime, and it's a better job if you're a police officer working in Hammond. I don't want these officers to think the reason they were brought in here is because of the color of their skin. But they're brought in and they're going to do a good job for us. And I think it's going to make the community proud. And you'll see these 3 new individuals when they come in.
Any other discussion on 1447? All those in favor, first and second, say aye. All those in favor, first and second? Aye. Opposed? First and second passes.
President Opinker, that concludes the introduction of ordinances.
Thank you, Clerk Golick. Moving on to resolutions.
Item A, Resolution 14R-32, sponsored by Councilwoman Vines. A resolution confirming the appointment of Gladys L. Hillard as a commissioner of the Hammond Human Relations Commission of the City of Hammond, Indiana.
Mr. President,
Councilwoman Vines.
I move for final passage of 14R32.
Second.
Motion by Councilwoman Vines, second by Councilman Hinojosa for final passage of 14R32. Is there any discussion?
Mr. President,
Councilwoman Vines.
Ms. Hilliard is a reappointment. She currently is serving on the Human Relations Commission. She does fulfill the ordinance requirement of having a citizen member on the commission.
Any other discussion? Clerk Golick, roll call vote on 14R32.
Markovich.
Yes.
Spitali.
Yes.
Vines.
Yes.
Kalwinski.
Yes.
Ulaki.
Yes.
Higgs. Yes. Emerson.
Yes.
Hinosa.
Yes.
Opinker.
Yes, 14R32 passes 9-0.
Item B, Resolution 14R-33, sponsored by Councilwoman Vines. A resolution confirming the appointment of Brandon Dorsey as a commissioner of the Hammond Human Relations Commission of the City of Hammond, Indiana.
Mr. President,
Councilwoman Vines.
I move for final passage of 14R33.
Second.
Motion by Councilwoman Vines, second by Councilman Spitali for final passage. Is there any discussion?
Mr. President,
Councilwoman Vines.
Brandon Dorsey is also a reappointment. He does fulfill the ordinance requirement for a resident with business and industry experience. He is also, just as a side, a wrestling coach at Eggers. Last year, I had the opportunity to go to a wrestling competition over at Hammond High that he organized for these kids, and he did a fabulous job.
Any other discussion? Clerk Golick, roll call vote on 14R33.
Markovich. Yes. Spitali.
Yes.
Vines.
Yes.
Kalwinski.
Yes.
Ulaki.
Yes.
Higgs.
Yes.
Emerson.
Yes.
Enosa.
Yes.
Opinker.
Yes, 14R33 passes 9-0.
Item C, Resolution 14R34, sponsored by Councilwoman Vines. A resolution confirming the appointment of Ronald Mullins as a Commissioner of the Hammond Human Relations Commission of the City of Hammond, Indiana.
Mr. President,
Councilwoman Vines.
I move for final passage of 14R34.
Second.
Motion by Councilwoman Vines, second by Councilman Spitali for final passage of 14R34. Is there any discussion?
Mr. President,
Councilwoman Vines.
Mr. Mullins is also a reappointment, and he fulfills the ordinance requirement of having a member with real estate and banking experience. He currently serves as president of the commission.
Any other discussion? Clerk Golick, roll call vote on 14R34.
Markovich. Yes. Spitali.
Yes.
Vines.
Yes.
Kalwinski.
Yes.
Ulaki.
Yes.
Higgs.
Yes.
Emerson.
Yes.
Enosa.
Yes.
Opinker.
Yes, 14R34 passes 9-0.
Item D, Resolution 14R35, sponsored by Councilman Spitali. A resolution appointing Janet Vines to the Board of Hammond Urban Academy.
Mr. President,
Councilman Spitali.
move for final passage of 14R-35.
It's a motion by Councilman Spitali, second by Councilman Kowinski for final passage of 14R35. Is there any discussion?
Mr. President,
Councilman Spitali.
I'd like to read a letter from Councilwoman Vines. I've served on the Hammond Academy of Science and Technology School Board since 2012 as a Hammond City Council appointment. During that time, I've been honored to be part of the first high school graduating class. The class of 2014 had a graduation rate of over 90% and a 92% college admission rate. They have received over $1.1 million in scholarships, not including college bound. I respectfully request to continue my service. Thank you, Councilman Vines.
Any other discussion?
Mr. President,
Councilman Higgs.
just for a point of clarity, I'm just wondering, I mean, it reminds me of like being a school board candidate, but I know it's nonpartisan, but I guess I would ask Berger, we have an appointment from the council, is it feasible for Councilwoman Vines to sit on that board? Attorney Berger, can you answer that?
I have not researched that question.
Wow. I mean,
I think it's a private corporation, though. I don't think it's a city corporation. So if it's a private corporation, I would think the city passed under the private corporation's constitution and bylaws appoints a member. I don't think that it would violate any law.
Mr. President,
Mr. Mayor.
I know a councilperson's always served on the HASS board. It was designed that way because the city is a guarantor on HASS loan, which is why the refinance is coming before the city council, is because at the end of the day, if HASS runs over the limit on their spending, the city bails them out through mayor's gaming money, okay? So from the very beginning, I've had appointments to the board. The board has their own appointments elected, and the city council has always had an appointee. I believe for the past few years, before Councilwoman Vines took over, I believe it was Councilwoman Poland And then she no longer became a councilwoman, and then Councilwoman Venez took over, if I remember the history correctly.
Correct.
But as far as the board is intentionally designed so that a member of the Hammond City Council serves on it. It's been that way from its inception.
Any other discussion? Clerk Golick, roll call vote on 14R35.
Markovich,
Yes.
Spitali,
Yes.
Vines,
Yes.
Kalwinski,
Yes.
Ulaki,
Yes.
Higgs,
Yes.
Emerson,
Yes.
Enosa,
Yes.
Opinker.
Yes, 14R35 passes 9-0.
Item E, Resolution 14R36, sponsored by Councilwoman Venez. A resolution confirming the appointment of Robbie Brundage as a commissioner of the Hammond Historic Preservation Commission, City of Hammond, Indiana.
Mr. President,
Councilwoman Venez.
I move for final passage of 14R36.
Second.
Motion by Councilwoman Venez, second by Councilman Spitali for final passage of 14R36. Is there any discussion?
Mr. President,
Councilwoman Venez.
we all had an opportunity to meet Mr. Brundage in caucus. He is a reappointment to the commission, and he is an architect, so he brings great experience.
Any other discussion? Clerk Golick, roll call vote on 14R36.
Markovich.
Yes.
Spitali.
Yes.
Venez.
Yes.
Kalwinski. Ulaki.
Yes.
Higgs.
Yes.
Emerson.
Yes.
Enosa.
Yes.
Opinker.
Yes, 14R36 passes 9-0.
Item F, Resolution 14R37, sponsored by Councilwoman Venez. A resolution appointing Victor Frankel to the Hammond Economic Development Commission.
Mr. President,
Councilwoman Venez.
I move for final passage of 14R37.
Second.
Motion by Councilwoman Venez, second by Councilman Spitali for final passage of 14R37. Is there any discussion?
Mr. President,
Councilwoman Venez.
you all may recall that a couple of meetings ago, Victor Franco came before us to be appointed to the Economic Development Commission. We found when his commission came up that that resolution was not worded quite properly, so I'm asking for your consideration again to appoint Victor Franco.
Any other discussion? Clerk Golick, roll call vote on 14R37.
Markovich.
Yes.
Spitali.
Yes.
Venez.
Yes.
Kalwinski.
Yes.
Ulaki.
Yes.
Higgs.
Yes.
Emerson.
Yes.
Enosa.
Yes.
Opinker.
Yes, 14R37 passes 9-0.
Item G, Resolution 14R-38, sponsored by Councilman Kalwinski. A resolution to reappoint Miriam Soto Presley to the Hammond Redevelopment Commission.
Mr. Chairman,
Councilman Kowinski.
move for final passage of 14R-38.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Kowinski, second by Councilman Spitali for final passage of 14R38. Is there any discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Councilman Kowinski.
Ms. Presley has served on redevelopment the past 3 years and has been before this board previously, and most people who've been to redevelopment have seen her work. Present President Tony Helfrich and former President Jamie Lambert both endorse her continued appointments. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Clerk Golick, roll call vote on 14R38.
Markovich.
Yes.
Spitali.
Yes.
Venez.
Yes.
Kalwinski.
Yes.
Ulaki.
Yes.
Higgs.
Yes.
Enosa.
Yes.
Enosa.
Yes.
Opinker.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, motion passes.
Oh, I'm sorry, motion passes 9-0.
Item H, Resolution 14R39, sponsored by Councilman Opinker. A resolution appointing Dennis Radowski to the Board of Zoning Appeals to fill an unexpired term.
Mr. President,
Councilwoman Vines.
I move for final passage of 14R39.
Second.
It's a motion by Councilwoman Vines, second by Councilman Higgs, for final passage of 14R39. Is there any discussion? Clerk Golick, roll call vote.
Markovich. Spitali.
Yes.
Vines.
Yes.
Kalwinski.
Yes.
Ulaki.
Yes.
Higgs.
Yes.
Emerson.
Yes.
Canosa.
Yes.
Opinker.
Yes, 14R39 passes 9-0.
Item I, Resolution 14-40, sponsored by Councilman Higgs. A resolution supporting the President's executive action on immigration.
Mr. President,
Councilman Higgs.
I move for final passage of 14R-40. I so move.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Higgs, second by Councilman Hinojosa for final passage of 14R40. Is there any discussion?
Mr. President,
Councilman Hinojosa.
yeah, this does not give these 5 million undocumented citizenship. This is from the White House, Office of the Press Secretary, dated November 20th, 2014. Fact sheet, Immigration Accountability Executive Action. The President's Immigration Accountability Executive Actions will help secure the border, hold nearly 5 million undocumented immigrants accountable, and ensure that everyone plays the same rules. Acting with legal authority, the President is taking an important step to fix our broken immigration system. These executive actions crack down on illegal immigration at the border, prioritize deporting felons, not families, and require certain undocumented immigrants to pass a criminal background check and pay their fair share of taxes as they register to temporarily stay in the U.S. without fear of deportation. These are common sense steps, but only Congress can finish the job. As the President acts, he will continue to work with Congress on a comprehensive bipartisan bill, like the one passed by the Senate more than a year ago, that can replace these actions and fix the whole system. 3 criminal elements of the President's executive actions are cracking down on illegal immigration at the border. The President's actions increase the chances that anyone attempting to cross the border illegally can be caught and sent back, continuing the surge of resources that effectively reduce the number of undocumented children crossing the border illegally this summer. The President's action will centralize border security command and control to continue to crack down on illegal immigration. Next one, deporting felons, not families. The President's actions focus on deportation of people who threaten national security and public safety. He has directed immigration enforcement to place anyone suspected of terrorism, violent crimes, gang members, and recent border crossings at the top of the deportation priority list. Next one. Accountability, criminal background checks, and taxes. The President is also acting to hold accountable those undocumented immigrants who have lived in the U.S. for more than 5 years and are parents of U.S. citizens or unlawful permanent residents. By registering and passing criminal and national security background checks, millions of undocumented immigrants will start paying their fair share of taxes and temporarily stay in the U.S. without fear of deportation for 3 years at a time. The President's action will streamline legal immigration to boost our economy and will promote naturalization for those who qualify. For more than a half a century, every president, Democrat or Republican, has used the legal authority to act on immigration. President Obama is now taking another common sense step.
Any other discussion?
Mr. President,
Councilman Emerson.
you know, that's all, well and good, but and you had said it yourself, Councilman, that Congress will have the final action in this regard. Our borders in Hammond, the consul's borders, are Lake Michigan, Gary, Calumet City and Munster. I mean, no one disagrees with the thrust, I guess, of what the president is doing here, but I mean, maybe developing issues with who directly borders our city would be more appropriate. I mean, in terms of, there's lots of things we could get involved in. We could get involved in ISIS, you know, anything in the world, but, and I understand what you're saying, but I'm wondering why we're, again, sort of leaving the borders of our city.
Mr. President,
Mr. Mayor?
is my signature on, is that a resolution of the city council, or is it under the mayor's signature? Because, I mean, if my signature's not on there, I guess I could check out of this argument, but I really would like a lot more information about the immigration bill before it's sent to me, when I think this is the type of thing, if we're gonna debate immigration issues in the United States of America, it's not just a 2-paragraph resolution that gets it done. I mean, if you guys are comfortable on voting for this and you want my signature, I can tell you I need a lot more information. I don't really know enough about the immigration bill because it's not really our jurisdiction. Our jurisdiction's Hammond, Indiana. I'm more worried about Governor Pence and his agenda. No, all due respect to President Obama and Congress, we got enough problems here in Indiana. We got enough problems here in Hammond I'm worried about. I really don't feel educated enough on this issue. But then again, if it's just a resolution of the council, take my signature off it and debate it yourselves. But I agree with Councilman Emerson. I mean, we got a lot of things we could talk about. We could talk about what's going on in the Middle East. We could talk about what's going on with the price of gas. I mean, are we really going to start focusing on national issues here in the Hammond City Council? We got a lot of problems. We got a lot of things to do. It just seems like this is a stunt, in my opinion.
Any other discussion? Clerk Golick, roll call vote on 14R40.
Markovich.
Yes.
Spitali.
Yes. Yes.
Vines.
Yes.
Kalwinski.
Yes.
Ulaki.
Yes.
Higgs.
Yes.
Emerson.
Yes?
Hinosa.
Yes.
Opinker.
Yes. 14R40 passes 9-0.
Item J, Resolution 14R-41, sponsored by Councilman Higgs. A resolution supporting passage of the Youth Promise Act.
Mr. President,
Councilman Higgs.
I move for final passage of Resolution 14R-41. I so move.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Higgs, second by Councilman Hinojosa for final passage of 14R41. Is there any discussion?
Mr. President,
Councilman Higgs.
I'd like to read this. It says, whereas the Youth Promise Act, prison reduction through opportunities, mentor and intervention, support, and education has been under consideration by Congress for several years, and whereas the act is intended to reduce the incarceration of young people, communities facing the greatest young gang and crime challenges will be able to develop a comprehensive response to youth violence by a coordinated prevention and intervention response. Representatives from local law enforcement, school systems, court systems, social services, health and mental health providers, and business communities, and other public and private and faith-based organizations will form a council to assess the problems and costs of community incurs as a result of youth violence, crime, and welfare for teens and pregnancy. The council will be developing comprehensive plans for implementing evidence-based prevention, intervention, strategies to address the problems and costs. The council will then assure that the savings from implementing the program are documented so that some of the savings can be recaptured and applied to continue the program beyond the initial federal funding. Therefore, it be resolved by the Common Council of the City of Hammond that is wholeheartedly supportive of the passage of the Youth Promise Act, H.R. 1318. Be it further resolved that the copies of the resolution be sent to Congress and the senators representing the city. Resolution supporting the passage of the Youth Promise.
Any other discussion?
Mr. President,
Councilman Hinojosa.
yeah, it was also discussed in the back that Lake County Council passed this already. They're also looking at Michigan City, Gary, also Wisklowski signed off on it, and they're looking for Coates, Connolly, and something I was reading on here that was, it says there, an example of promising program under the Youth Promise Act is Richmond, Virginia Gang Reduction and Intervention Program called GRIP. I mean, if it can reduce gang reduction, I think it's a success in what it's doing.
Mr. President,
Councilman Higgs.
I want to personally thank Ms. King for bringing this information to me. Anything that's going to help our youth and any programs that is going to prevent crime and it's going to be an asset to the community, I am 110% behind, and hopefully we can come to a consensus of trying to address the needs of the community as we move further in the future.
Any other discussion? Clerk Golick, roll call vote on 14R41.
Markovich.
Yes.
Spitali.
Yes.
Vines.
Yes. Yes.
Kalwinski. Ulaki.
Yes.
Higgs.
Yes.
Emerson.
Yes.
Enosa.
Yes.
Opinker.
Yes, 14R41 passes 9-0.
President Opinker, that concludes the reading of the resolutions.
Thank you, Clerk Golick. Moving on to new and unfinished business.
Item A, BZA Z-14-07 for a variance of use from zoning and ordinance to allow distribution and food processing located at 2825 Carlson Drive within the city of Hammond, Lake County, Indiana. The petitioner is Byway Brewing Company.
Mr. President,
Mr. Mayor?
this is the microbrewery that's moving to Oxbow Landing. The commercial classification for Oxbow Landing doesn't fit the intended use of this building, so they did this variance. The building's going to have distillation and distribution and industrial uses, so we're asking the council to please approve this special use. I know it's going to be set for a public hearing, but this is the brewery project at Oxbow. If there's any questions, I'm here. I know that you have another meeting still.
Mr. President,
Councilman Higgs?
I know in caucus it was, the question came up, which I posed to Brian, was what was the total investment? And I think the total investment was $2.3 million.
True. Thank you. So far, the total investments at Oxbow Landing, the BW3 project was over $20 million in itself. The Hampton that's under construction right now is over $10 million itself. This is a $2 million project. When you think about, we purchased the entire property for about $18 million, and we've already got double the investment into that property, a few years later, but I think it's all turning out really well there. So I appreciate you guys considering this. And I have to leave shortly after this. I wanted to wish everybody a Merry Christmas. I have a meeting with the entire FOP. They're waiting for me right now, so I have to run out of here. I didn't want the public to think I didn't want to hear public expression. I wanted to wish the council a Merry Christmas. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mary. Same to you.
Okay, could I have a first and second on this?
Call for the vote? No vote?
We're not voting on this. First and second, and refer it to somebody?
Refer to council as a whole,
Right.
with the intent
Need
to
a first-
consider.
First and second with intent to consider.
What's the date?
It is January 12th, next council meeting.
With the intent to consider on January 12th.
Second.
Mr. President.
So move.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? First and second granted.
There was, point of order. Clerk just simply stated, but we got to do it legally. So we
Right.
need to do it personally.
Okay, who's coming out with the first and second with the notice to intent? We need somebody to do a first, somebody to do a second.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, Councilman Higgs is making the motion.
The ordinance number is
1448.
1448. I make a motion that we move it by first and second reading by title with the intent to consider on January 12th council's meeting. I so move.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Higgs, second by Councilman Hinojosa. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? First and second passes.
Mr. President,
Councilman Emerson.
I move to suspend the rules.
There's a motion by Councilman Emerson to suspend the rules. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Higgs. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Rules suspended.
Mr. President,
Councilman Emerson.
I move for final passage of 14R42.
Second.
There's a motion by Councilman Emerson, second by Councilman Spitali. Final passes of 14R42. Is there any discussion?
The clerk will read the resolution. A resolution confirming the appointment of Janet S. Evans as a Commissioner of the Hammond Historic Preservation Commission of the City of Hammond, Indiana.
Mr. President,
Councilman Emerson.
as we stated in caucus, Janet Evans is being appointed to wants to be appointed to the Historic Preservation Commission. What I didn't read in there, I would like to just read briefly from her cover letter that she sent along with her interest. She comes to Hammond with tremendous respect for architecture, our city's history, its preservation, and abundance of energy. When her and her husband relocated, they sought out historic neighborhoods of Hammond. They moved into their home in 1996. They did extensive restorations over the following 6 years, and as with all period houses, the work is ongoing. Her and her husband take great pride in their home and community, and she thanks us for considering her appointment to the Historic Preservation Commission. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Clerk Golick, roll call vote.
Markovich.
Yes.
Spitali.
Yes.
Vines.
Yes.
Kalwinski. Yes. Ulaki.
Yes.
Higgs. Yes. Emerson.
Yes.
Enosa. Yes. Opinker.
Yes. 14R42 passes 9-0. Any other unfinished business?
Mr. President,
Councilman Spitali.
I'd like to announce 2 upcoming birthdays for 2 very popular young men. Clerk Golick coming up this Thursday, and our President, Michael Pinker, on Christmas Day. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Thank you, Councilman Spitali. Also, Jake Jacobs, his is coming up too on the 18th.
Happy
birthday,
birthday,
Jake.
everyone.
Mr. President,
Councilman Higgs.
as I stated previously, I received a letter, correspondence from one of my constituents as it relates to Harrison Park. So I'm going to forward these documents, and I make a motion that they be sent to the Park Superintendent, Pat Moore, in regards to addressing the safety issues at Harrison Park. I so move.
Second.
There's a motion by Councilman Higgs, second by Councilman Hinojosa, a motion to send Pat Moore Sr. In regards to safety at Harrison Park. All those in favor?
Mr. Chairman, I think since he's saying that it's a safety issue, that a copy of that should be sent to the Board of Public Works and Safety also.
Okay, well, send one to Board of Public Works and also Pat Moore Sr., Head of the Park Departments, on the safety in regards to Harrison Park. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Mr. President,
Councilwoman Vines.
this being the holiday season, we have only one Crime Watch meeting left from now until the end of the year, and that is the East Hammond Pullman Crime Watch. They will meet tomorrow night, 6:30 p.m. at the Ophelia Steen Center. It is their Christmas meeting, and they're asking that everyone bring a dish. So come out and meet some of your neighbors and find out what's going on in your neighborhood. And from all of the Crime Watch and community groups in the city of Hammond, we wish everyone a safe and happy holiday season. Thank you.
I've also received a letter, actually prior to the council meeting, from Chief Doty. It reads like this, Mr. Michael Opinker, Council President. Dear Mr. Opinker, I would like to bring to your attention an excerpt of events which took place during a rally calling for solidarity and justice. The rally was held in front of City Hall on Sunday, December 14th at 1:30. A large group of people gathered on the sidewalks of City Hall. I instructed Assistant Chief Long to assign a supervisor to monitor the assembly to assure the participants remain lawful and did not obstruct pedestrian or vehicular traffic on Calumet Avenue. Assistant Chief Long had responded to the area to assist and observe as the number of people in the assembly grew to approximately 150 people. At one point, an organizer of the assembly instructed the crowd to jaywalk onto Calumet Avenue, and some participants took to the street in an unlawful manner and did obstruct traffic. Assistant Chief Long approached the violators alone and unassisted and repeatedly requested that they return to the sidewalk and not interfere with traffic. He tried to guide several people out of the street of harm's way by placing his hands on their shoulders, and he had his hands slapped away twice as violators refused his lawful orders. Additionally, units had to be called to respond to assist and clear the street and provide officers safety for Assistant Chief Long. While making efforts to get the assembly to respond to his orders so that the demonstration could continue in a lawful and peaceful manner, Assistant Chief Long noted that Hammond City Councilman Higgs and Hinojosa were part of the assembly. He especially noted no effort on their part was being made to help maintain peace and order, and that Councilman Hinojosa had a sign on his chest. Assistant Chief Long specifically asked Councilman Hinojosa why he was not helping him calm down the assembly. Councilman Hinojosa gave no response to Assistant Chief Long and stared back at him. 7 Hammond police officers were diverted from their beats and other duties to respond, to assist, and eventually stop the unlawful actions of the assembly. Violations surmountable to arrest were present. However, in an effort to show understanding and tolerance, no enforcement action other than to require compliance was made by the Hammond Police Department. The Hammond Council and the City of Hammond tasked the Hammond Police Department with maintaining peace and dignity within our city. I am concerned that 2 Hammond councilmen whose participant in a rally that became unlawful and offered no assistance to a police officer in need. I believe the council members hold an important and respected position in our community, and together Councilman Higgs and Councilman Hinojosa could have provided assistance to Assistant Chief Long in calming the assembly and thereby providing officer safety for a police officer in need of assistance. Also, their assistance may have reduced the elimination and additional resources which were called to the scene. I am hopeful that in the future we can count on members of the Hammond City Council to assist not only a police officer in need, but serve the citizens of Hammond by dissuading unlawful behavior and any assembly or group they decide to become part of. Sincerely, Chief John Doty, Hammond Police Department.
Mr. President,
Councilman Higgs?
just to respond to the, I guess, allegations, first and foremost, I attended the rally because I was, I guess, approached in terms of addressing the needs of our city and the community. And secondly, when no apparent reason am I going, whether it be the Hammond Police, Gary Police, or whatever, if people are acting in such a way that they can't, the police can't calm them down, what would make you think the councilman can? I mean, it's far-fetched. And secondly, I didn't see anyone act in an unprofessional manner. People simply were exercising their rights as citizens of the United States of America, which they have that right to do in their First Amendment, exercising their right, freedom of speech, and exercising the fact that they were concerned about what's taking place, not just in Hammond, but nationwide. If you look at the news, in the chief should, if he looks at the news, he can see it's not just happening in Hammond, but also in Chicago, which is about a 30-mile radius from us. There are concerns that the citizens are trying to address, and no form of fashion would Councilman Higgs exercise in anything that's not feasible or neither is disrespectful to any officer in this city. Make sure you comment that in the paper, sir. So to address or send a letter in regards, because we were the only 2 councilmen that stood up and said that we were not happy with what was going on. So we're going to get a letter saying that, oh, they showed up, so let's send them a letter because, hey, Councilman Hinojosa wants to run for mayor, and Councilman Higgs was there because it represents the African-American community. Is wrong. The reality of it is that we were protesting in a respectful manner. And in fact, when the gentleman, the officer, the chief, assistant chief, approached Ms. King and said that we're gonna start writing tickets, Ms. King abruptly stated, follow the lights. So no form of fashion was anyone disruptive or being disrespectful. They were just simply exercising their rights. That's all I have to say.
Mr. President,
Councilman Hinojosa.
first of all, what this political statement, I know it's political, but Jeff Long was approximately from here to that corner over there, and my right ear is right now, it's infected right now. It's probably about 70% where I can't hear out of it. And for Jeff Long to be speaking in front of about 50 people in between us and speaking to me about helping, I didn't hear anything of Jeff Long. Why didn't Jeff Long approach me across the street where I wasn't blocking the street or anything? And by the way, too, the streets, they didn't lay down on the street. They didn't break no windows. It was a peaceful march. It was very well put together. I think it was just a little slap on the hand. I think maybe the next time, and the police officers, which they know the law, and they know how to handle crowds and handle walking and jaywalking and all that. They instructed everybody to don't cross the street until you get a green light, and then cross the street. Okay, wait for the next green line. Walk. Okay, and that's what they did. So they were wrong for a little while, and the streets were blocked for a couple minutes. But as far as Jeff Long saying anything to me, I did not hear anything. I think this is all politically made up to make me look bad because I'm running for a higher position, and I'm there representing Blacks Matter, All Lives Matter. I was there to represent it because I think it's the right thing to do, and they have an action plan that is going to come up next, and that's what the march was about, and I'm glad at least myself and Councilman Higgs were there to support this, because we have to look into the future about what we can do next. It's not about what happened in the past, and we need to let that go. What are we going to do in the future for our youth? What are we going to do to correct them so they know the law? What are we going to do so they don't get shot by a police officer? Educate them. There's a lot. This is all part of the action plan. But as far as what was said right there, Jeff Long, you better take that statement back.
Mr. President,
Councilman Higgs.
and furthermore, I mean, no form of fashion would I even allow anyone that is close to me to conduct themselves in an unprofessional manner as it relates to the police or the fire. I'm not going to conduct myself in an unprofessional manner, because certainly I don't want to be arrested and pay a bond for something that I did not subject to do. If I do something, it's because someone has offended me or put their hands on me. That would be my only reason for that. But to protest in a reasonable manner, to exercise your rights, it's only being a citizen of the United States of America. I don't know where all this other language came from as regards to us. No one even approached me. Me and Councilman Hinojosa stood on the steps for about at least an hour, and never did any officer approach us and say, hey, can you give us a hand? Or hey, can you talk to them? Or hey, is there anything that we can do? Or hey, is there anything that we can assist you with? That never occurred. So I don't know where all this far-fetched language is coming from in regards to Councilman Higgs, and Councilman Hinojosa didn't do anything to prevent them. They were exercising their rights. I didn't even walk across the street. I simply watched, observed the whole process, and participated in something that I felt was needed in my city. Simple as that.
Mr. President,
Councilman Hinojosa.
maybe it was because there's another Hinojosa that's a police officer. Maybe he thought I was that other Hinojosa that's been on the force for probably, I don't know, 20-something years. Maybe he thought I was him, and I can assist him, but I'm not going to go out there and assist something that I'm not a professional in. I'm a steel worker, I'm a councilman, a mobile equipment operator, but I'm not a police officer, and I'm not going to go out there and intervene on something that's supposed to be done by police officers, not by the councilman.
We're not officers.
Any other new unfinished business? On behalf of myself and the council, I'd like to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a nice, safe New Year. And hopefully we could start the new year off on a good note. Other than that, any other new unfinished business?
Motion adjourned, Mr. President.
No, not yet, not yet. No unfinished business is closed. Public expression. First speaker will be Miss Carlotta Blake King.
Good evening, Council. First of all, I would like to say, so I won't forget, I wish each and every one of you all a Merry Christmas and a very prosperous, Happy New Year. I had followed the direction of Lieutenant Andy Short and Lieutenant Andy Short, the Director of Internal Affairs for the Hammond Police Department, and the directions of Ron Mullins, who I understand is the President of the Human Relations Commission, regarding the meeting, the forum that the mayor had, that if you had any complaints regarding racial profiling, that you have exercised your right and put it in writing. I did that. I went before the Hammond Human Relations Commission to file a complaint. First of all, they did not even have a complaint form. And the director was somewhat rattled, and I simply said, I'm not here to mess up your day. I'm just following the instructions of Ron Mullins to come here and file a complaint. So she ended up giving me a complaint form from the Hammond Police Department, which was okay. I just reduced my complaint to that form. After such, the chief of police of the city of Hammond did respond to my complaint. Lieutenant Andy Short placed an envelope in my mailbox, and when I pulled it out, it was not addressed to anyone. The envelope did say Hammond Police Department. I opened the envelope, and there was a letter. And the first thing I did was read who sent it, and it was the chief. After reading the letter, I immediately realized that the letter was not signed. It was not on the Hammond Police Department stationery. And in the heading, my name was not correct. I'm not going to debate what the meat of this letter because it's okay. I called Andy, well, obviously Lieutenant Short for the record, and asked him, could you please share with the chief or whomever to give me the courtesy and the respect of a resident of this city for so many years, vested, to at least when you respond to my concerns, put it on the stationery, sign it, put my name on the envelope. Just give me some dignity regarding any complaint I filed. So I have a copy of that complaint that I will give to the clerk, and if you wish to make copies for you to read, and I'm not arguing with the content of the letter, I'm just addressing how it was sent to me. And finally, I'm coming before you making our
Time's
first
up, Ms.
request.
King.
Would you please give me the courtesy to extend one more minute? I'm asking you.
One more minute.
Thank you, sir. I'm coming before you for the first time asking this council to consider a moratorium on the pedestrian grant that, according to the letter that I received from the chief, that it is primarily written to write tickets at high schools and middle schools. It doesn't say anyone else. So the folks that cross that park and come into City Hall, the judges and the attorneys and every employee that uses that parking lot, that crosses the street and jaywalk to get into this building is not subject to receiving a jaywalking ticket. And because the fact that we're dealing with youngsters, I consider it criminal to place our babies under such ridiculous whatever. It just bothers me that we would ticket a child as at the earliest age is 10 years old, go before a judge at age 10. Would you want your daughter or son to go before a judge at the age 10 for a jaywalking ticket? And then we're finding kids that feared telling their moms about it, so they didn't tell them. The tickets, they missed the court date, and therefore, additional fines. The fines for these jaywalking tickets start at $160. In this economy, who has $160 to shell out for a jaywalking ticket? It's what I would consider legal embezzlement.
Spoke your piece, Ms. King.
So I'm asking you, would you consider, because it's my understanding that you do approve these pedestrian grants that comes before you, that you ask for a moratorium so we can look at what we're doing and how we're criminalizing our children. We're putting them in a system at a too early age. Young people, perception of our city and how we're dealing with our kids. They have enough to deal with. Homework. A lot of them go home to homeless situations.
Your time's up, Ms. King.
I'm asking you, and I'm beseeching you, and I'm begging you to consider a moratorium on this pedestrian grant that affects our babies. Thank you very much.
This next speaker will be Mr. Latrell Kilpatrick. Miss?
Good evening, everyone. Ms. Laurel Kilpatrick. Speaking in favor of enacting an immediate moratorium on the ticketing of youth in Hammond, Indiana, it's very troubling. I'm an educator. I work at Purdue University, Calumet, and as Ms. King said, if adults on a daily basis are jaywalking to get to work, which I think it's reasonable. You get across the street the best way you can. If you're late, you may jaywalk. If adults are doing this and they're able to not be harassed coming to work, I think it's kind of reprehensible that children are being targeted and that children are being criminalized. And I think it's extremely problematic when we're using grant money, when we're attaching to the city's revenue the criminalization of children. I don't think that's the message that we want to send as a city. I don't think that's the message that we want to send as adults who want to see the best for children. I think there's a better way to do it. Just think there's a better way to do it. So I'm also asking for an immediate moratorium on the ticketing and criminalization of young children. I think that large sums of money that have been given in grants and other places can be used for people who would even volunteer to help usher kids across the street. We have many, many older people in our society. We have people who will be willing to spend the time to do that. I just think that getting children used to the criminalization process, it's a detriment. I think we can see in our society right now what desensitizing the youth to criminalized situations is doing to our society. And I unfortunately think that this is a furthering of that. So maybe just among yourselves, talk about it, thinking about it, and absolutely we would love to see action on the immediate moratorium of criminalizing children by these jaywalking tickets. And thank you everybody for your time and for your service on this board. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kilpatrick. Next speaker, Mr. Johnny Williams.
Hi, my name is Johnny Williams. I'm a resident here in Hammond. I'm just amused at all that's been going on with the child laws and them being arrested and moratoriums for jaywalking. I just have a few things to say, but no, I'm going to end it short right here. If you thought Sunday was a gesture to wake the city of Hammond up, you guys haven't seen anything yet. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker, Ms. Kitten Gray.
Good evening, Hammond City Council. Wow, a lot I'm thinking about here tonight. First of all, I want to talk about Sunday. I think that the rally that we had in front of the City Hall was beautiful. People of all walks of life came out. I think there were close to 200 people with the ones that came and left. Some left early. It was something I think that all of you guys should have witnessed. Our mayor should have been there. It was beautiful. I don't think that it got out of hand at all. I even applaud the Hammond Police for how they just, sat back and, yeah, they kept the peace. Thank you, Hammond City Police, for not really putting your hands on anyone because there was no need to. And I thank my two councilmen, Higgs and Hinojosa, for being there. Thank you so much. I would like to appeal to the mayor, but he left already. But if you guys could let him know that there's an initiative that the President of the United States has put in place called My Brother's Keeper. I think it's a great idea. This initiative has money attached to it, we can get some teen summits going and some workshops going and things that keep our youth involved in their community and to make this Hammond, Indiana a better place. I'd also like to see more respect in this room. I see a lot of disrespect of each other, and I think that this is televised, so everybody should always be on their best behavior and conduct themselves. Let's not call each other out of our names, I'm proud to be a part of the city of Hammond. I'm working to make this a better place for my kids and everyone else's kids and for all of the community. I'm a native Chicagoan, but I've chose to stay here for over 22 years. So let's respect one another. Let's start being the example. Let's be the change that we want to see in the world right here in this room, and maybe everyone else will take our lead. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gray. Next speaker, Mr. Eddie Banda.
Good evening, Council. It's not many times that my name's Eddie Banda. I'm at 1246 175th. Not too much I come up to talk, but I just wanted to wish everyone a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. Looking forward to 2015. All right.
Thank you, Mr. Banda. That's right. Next speaker, Mr. George Stoya.
George Stoya, Robertsdale. I've come into this, discussion somewhat halfway, I don't know how far, but with respect to the idea of 25 miles an hour being uniform throughout the city, if perhaps I'm understanding this wrong, I must object. 25 miles an hour throughout the city, except for school districts, and I agree with Councilman Emerson on this. That's fine, but I mean, this talk of, I don't know how serious to take it, 25 miles an hour all the way down Holman Avenue? Really? You know how hard it is to drive 25 miles an hour? And not only that, it's onerous and burdensome. We have cars, my car idles at 20 miles an hour, for God's sake. I mean, you can't be serious. I mean, 30 miles an hour within the city seems reasonable in most places. Some places, you can bump it to 45, but this idea of a uniform speed limit, I think is irrational. I mean, you guys are thinking about it. It seems, and I'm just making a point, that it's an abstract. Oh yeah, 25 sounds good, as if, there doesn't seem to be a human element involved in the deliberation or calculation of controlling a car at 25. I mean, people got things to do. They're under a lot of stress, pressure, time. And when you're bumping around at 25 miles an hour, that isn't making it. I mean, if you're by school, fine. Kids are around, fine. 20 miles an hour around schools. I got no problem with that. But, if you're not around school, come on, get it up to at least 30. Anyway, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stoya. Final speaker of the evening, Mr. Alvin Cheeks.
Alvin Cheeks, 832 Merrill Street. I'm here speaking for my brother, Robert Ricky Johnson, who was killed by a police department. I was at the rally, kind of observing, kind of laying back. I was approached by the assistant chief, and he informed me that there is a law that says you have to aid an officer if he's in need. So there were two little girls who I know very well, 8 and 9 years old, and they were steadfast. They didn't want to move, and I respect that. They have a right to protest. So I helped them move. So I commend them young ladies for standing in the middle of Calumet Avenue at 8, 9 years old, and they said their grandmother gave them $500 each, so they wasn't afraid to go to jail. So I respect those young ladies, and they got to buy pieces and ice cream. I'm also here to thank Councilman Higgs and Eddie for the work they done at Thanksgiving, making sure that those people receive Thanksgiving. Also want to thank the gas stations and the firework industry for making sure that all those people that I couldn't help this year because I was sick. So I just really appreciate that. And the march was very lawful. It was inside of the law. I just was tickled by the fact that, you know, the assistant chief notified me of the law that failure to not aid the officers against the law. So I helped the two little girls out of the street. And I just want to thank the FOI for coming in and helping those protesters be safe. And God bless you guys, and Happy New Year.
Thank you, Mr. Cheeks. Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Motion by Councilman Hinojosa, second by Councilman Higgs. All those in favor? Opposed?